toxic masculinity.
Elizabeth Warren speaks out against her harsh treatment of January 6 protesters.
Yeah, can you believe that? So now we've got two Democrats sitting here starting to recognize.
3 months later. Wow. Thank you.
Well, we get two Democrats here. We got Rose McGowan and now we got Elizabeth Warren, and both of them are recognizing that the Democrats are flippin' evil. In this particular case, it's not about the cult, the left-wing cult, but it's about the left using the judicial system to punish their political enemies and to send a message and to threaten conservatives, right? If you protest, if you do something we don't like, we are going to put you in prison. This is what they do in third world dictatorships. This is what they do in fascist countries. If you disagree with a fascist dictator politically, he will put you in prison. This is what Putin does. This is what they do in China. This is what they do in North Korea.
Prison is for dead pocket opposition. They will just kill you.
Yeah. But
they won't put you in prison.
Well, sometimes they put you in prison. I mean, look at the guy that's in prison now on the hunger strike.
He is not a real opposition.
All right, Valeria, you're ruining my analogy here. I'm trying to say Democrats are bad. Just go with it. Just go with it. Gosh, okay. Anyway, point is, third world dictatorships use he's throwing stuff at me now. Use their political power and the judicial system to attack their political enemies. And so do the Democrats. You know who doesn't do that? Good, patriotic Americans, Republicans. We don't punish our political enemies using the judicial system. They attacked Dinesh D'Souza. I've talked to you about that many times. Dinesh D'Souza was inappropriately put into through the prison system because he created a documentary that was critical of Barack Obama. It's unbelievable. Unbelievably weaponized use of the judicial system by a political party. And that's what they're doing now with the January 6th protests. And finally, Elizabeth Warren sees it. She sees this. Capitol riot defendants win unlikely Democrat champions as they face harsh detainment. So Elizabeth Warren fled the Capitol on January 6th from a mob she later called domestic terrorists. But now she and other Senate Democrat leaders are standing up for their attackers' rights as criminal defendants. Attackers. Yeah, they attacked them. Come on. But this is Politico. You know, the reason I picked the Politico article is because I'm like, well, if Politico is covering it, then it's going to be much more convincing to a Democrat who might be watching this. Most of the 300 plus people charged with participating in the January 6th Capitol riot have been released while they await trial, but dozens of those deemed to be dangerous, flight risks or high risk of obstructing justice, I don't know how they would obstruct justice. They're just like average Americans. None of them are like powerful people. They're all just regular folks. But anyway, whatever. Ordered held without bond. D.C. Jail officers later determined that all Capitol detainees would be placed in so-called restrictive housing, a move billed as necessary to keep the defendants safe, as well as guards and other inmates. I mean, to some degree, that's kind of true, and because the problem is these people are not criminals. They walked through the Capitol casually, believing that they were allowed to do so because Capitol Police ushered them in.
There at all. Inside, you weren't supposed to go there. They broke the law.
Said who?
They broke the law.
How? What do you mean we're not allowed to go into the Capitol building?
Like breaking in a Capitol building?
Yeah, but most of the people that went in... Hold on, don't interrupt me. Most of the people who walked in were ushered in by the police.
Chris, it was a trap started by Antifa who started breaking into the Capitol.
But darling, yes, a few people broke windows and snuck in that way. But the vast majority of people walking through the Capitol just walked in through the doors.
And it was a trap, and it's a very tragic moment.
Yeah, but they didn't. There was no indication that they were not allowed in the Capitol. Because I'm not aware of whether or not...
Still illegal. That's why they're charged like...
They're saying that it was illegal, but aren't people allowed through the Capitol in like tours and stuff like that? I think they are. I mean, it's called the public house, right, or something like that. I think I've never been through the Capitol myself, but I think you're allowed to go into the Capitol. I think it's publicly accessible. So I think that when the people were protesting and they were led into the Capitol by Capitol Police, I don't think they thought they were trespassing.
It's accessible, but I don't think you can have an access to the actual room when all the congressmen were evacuated,
Right.
you know?
Right. Yeah, but I don't think they were aware of that, because when the police officer came in, he didn't yell, "You guys are not allowed to be in here. You're trespassing." He said, "Could you guys be respectful of this place?" You saw that video.
Well, I saw the video how policemen tried to like stop them, but one policeman and like 50 people
No,
didn't
no, no. It
work
wasn't
out.
one policeman and 50 people. It was one policeman and like 3 guys that were in there. Remember the guy with like the Chewbacca outfit
yeah.
or whatever?
You're talking about this one. I'm talking about your parody with this black.
No. But you're specifically. Oh my God. Okay, talking to you is so difficult sometimes. Why are you being so argumentative today? Look, when they were in the actual part where part of the Capitol building where you 2 votes and stuff like that, nobody said that you're trespassing. In fact, I never heard anybody say you guys are trespassing at all. There was no indication whatsoever to anyone.
If you weren't warned about this, it doesn't save you from.
Sure, there is a concept in American law which is that
law,
ignorance does not justify breaking the law. However,
that's exactly what I wanted to say, but I know that in Russian I don't know the English.
But that's baloney. In this particular case, that is nonsense. If you genuinely think that you are following the law and technically you're breaking the law, the justice system, they have something called discretion, right, where they can determine what your intention was, and if you genuinely did something wrong.
I understand journalist intention to be inside the Capitol.
Okay, just stop talking. Just stop talking. Everything you're saying is wrong right now. Okay. Yes.
I have a right to have my own opinion.
Yeah, but your opinion's wrong.
Darling, if I'm not agree with you 100%, it doesn't mean that I'm wrong.
Look. These folks.
Do you want to have a dialogue?
These folks on January 6th did nothing wrong. Okay. Even the trespassing wasn't something wrong, because I don't believe that they understood that they were trespassing. Now, you can say that not knowing the law, but it's a ridiculous argument in this case, because it's like saying that as if the U.S.
Chris, if you pass on a red light, you will get stopped by the policeman, and you will say, "I didn't know the rules." It doesn't mean that you
Valeria,
have to pay a ticket for
talking.
it.
Just stop talking. You're so annoying right now. Okay, look. If the U.S. Congress secretly passes a law in the middle of the night that it's illegal to, do something perfectly normal like eat chicken, right? And then then police start rounding up people for eating chicken that didn't know they weren't supposed to. Is that just? Is that justice? No, that's ridiculous, okay? There are certain instances in which ignorance is a valid excuse. I don't care if that's the rule, is like ignorance is not an excuse. In certain instances, it's a perfectly valid excuse. That's why we have discretion with the judiciary. And this idea that these people are being arrested and being tried for trespassing when they were let in by police.
I saw they letting them in.
Yeah.
But not everywhere. Do you remember that girl got shot?
Yeah.
Jumped into the...
Yeah, there were certain instances.
They didn't let them in.
There are certain instances, but a lot of the people aren't being prosecuted for breaking windows and stuff. A lot of the people are being prosecuted for just walking through the Capitol.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank God. Thank God. All right. Let's see here. Most of the 300 people... Larry, stop throwing stuff at me. Most of the 300 plus people charged with participating in the January 6th riot have been released while they wait trial. Okay, blah, 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 whatever. We read that bit. Okay. So, but they are keeping certain people confined. But they are trying so they're saying that they're being confined for their own protection, which I agree with to some degree. If you are going to keep these people confined, I think you do have to keep them away from the general population of the prison, because these people are regular folks. They're not hardened criminals. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to put regular everyday folks, from the Midwest, like moms and soccer moms and stuff like that, put them in prison, you got to protect them from the general population, first of all. I guess secondly. But firstly, even more importantly, you shouldn't have them locked up at all anyway. This whole idea that we got to lock these people up because they were part of the Proud Boys or something like that. I mean, the problem is that the Democrats have so demonized a lot of these people, like the Proud Boys. They're like, oh, these people are domestic terrorists. No, they're not. What domestic terrorist acts have been committed by the Proud Boys? They broke a window at the Capitol building. Oh my gosh, they broke a window. It's terrifying. Let's see here. But that means 23-hour-a-day isolation for the accused even before the trials begin. And isolation is a form of torture. Solitary confinement is considered a form of torture to some degree, anyway. And such treatment does not sit well with Warren and the Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin, two of the chamber's fiercest critics of solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is a form of punishment that is cruel and psychologically damaging, Warren said in an interview. So I think to some degree she's just trying to stay consistent on her position of solitary confinement. I think solitary confinement is necessary sometimes, dealing with prisoners and stuff like that. But dealing with somebody who's awaiting trial, who's being tried for trespassing, I don't even know why they're even locked up. Let them go. Let them come back and come to their trial. And of course, if they miss their trial date, they're in contempt of court. But all right, let's see here. And then she says, and we're talking about people who haven't been convicted of anything yet. Exactly right. Exactly right. So I do think that it's possible these people will be able to sue the court system, and they could potentially win. The Massachusetts Democrat, a member of the Senate Majority, a member of Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's leadership team, said that while some limited use of solitary confinement is justified, uses of solitary confinement are justified, she worried the law enforcement officials are employing it to punish the January 6 defendants. You think? My God. I can't believe Elizabeth Warren actually says this out loud. That's impressive. That is impressive. Well done, Elizabeth Warren. Now, one thing about Elizabeth Warren, she used to actually be a conservative. She used to be very. She has written books that are about sort of like economically conservative ideas that were pretty spot on back in the day. But then she switched to being a Democrat, and she like lost her mind. I don't know why she switched to being a Democrat. Obviously, Democrats are criminals, so I don't trust anything.
The question is when she switched, because if it was like, she's old, she's pretty old. If it was like 30 years old, then Democrats were like okay back then, but not now.
But she still is a strong Democrat, and she still believes in this idea of, taking from businesses and giving it to government.
You don't want to accept that you made a mistake.
Well, I want to accept that she's totally redeemed herself. No, I don't know about totally, but to some degree, she's redeeming herself here because she's saying stuff that is totally valid. I mean, I was just shocked that she's recognizing that that these people are being punished for political reasons. I can't believe she's saying this out loud. It's almost like she hasn't been let in on the whole Democrat scheme of, let's commit all these, these ethics violations and criminal acts essentially, and try to get away with it. It's like she was like, she didn't get the memo. It's like, hey, keep your mouth shut. This is we're trying to commit crimes here and get away with it. Let's see here. She's worried that law enforcement officials are deploying it to punish the January 6th defendants or to break them so that they will cooperate. Yeah, no kidding. Of course that's what's going on. Her sentiments are shared by Durbin, who also chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee, and expressed surprise that all the detained January 6th defendants are being kept in so-called restrictive housing, while their defense of accused rioters' rights as criminal defendants. Good God, who wrote this? Let me see here. Kyle Cheney. Kyle Cheney, you are a shit writer. Sorry, that I shouldn't use that word, but I don't even understand this sentence. Sorry, I got to go down here. Okay. While their defense of accused rioters' rights as criminal defendants is unlikely to change with Justice Department's handling of those cases, good God, it's a notable case of prominent progressives using their political clout to amplify their criminal justice reform calls, even on behalf of Donald Trump supporters who, well, this is kind of what I was saying, is that Elizabeth Warren has a problem with solitary confinement generally, and so she's just using this as a way of getting support for that position. Durbin, who has long sought to eradicate solitary confinement, told Politico that such conditions should be very rare exceptions for accused insurrectionists or any other prisoners. You know what they really need to, like, I'm not going to read this whole article, but you know what they really need to do? They really need to start to recognize that not just that they're being unfairly treated as prisoners, but that they're being unfairly treated as as suspects in these crimes. And it's basically what I was telling you. Like, a lot of these people were just regular people strolling through the Capitol. They didn't even realize that they were trespassing. So this idea that they were, that, you know, because how often do Black Lives Matter protesters trespass? How often do Black Lives Matter protesters burn down buildings? I mean,
Not just building like police stations.
Police stations. How often do Black Lives Matter murder people? I mean, at the end of the day, the Black Lives Matter protesters were treated so damn well over the past year in 2020. They were basically treated like heroes. And then the Republicans go in and they walk through the Capitol building, basically just, you know, not really doing anything, you know, much destructive at all. I mean, a few of them broke a couple of things, but for the most part, they were genuinely peacefully protesting. They were doing what the Democrats were pretending the rioters were doing for the Black Lives Matter stuff. They were actually doing that. They were actually peacefully protesting. And I think, in my mind, they thought, well, if what we are doing is trespassing, the way that the government treats protesters now is so nice that even if what we're doing is a slight violation of the law or something like that, they're going to just ignore it, because they ignore, you know, violations of the law when protesters do it. You remember the mask thing? Like, oh, if you're caught without a mask outside, you're going to get a $500 fine. That was in LA. And then with the Black Lives Matter protests, they're like, but if you're a Black Lives Matter protester, you can totally get away with not wearing a mask and it's fine. Like, there was all these exceptions for protests, right? They're like, okay, so even if we are trespassing, probably, I imagine people walking to the Capitol thought they will probably dismiss it because we're protesting, right? Protesting nullifies certain laws, apparently. But it doesn't work for Republicans. It only works for Democrats. There's two sets of laws in America, one for Democrats, one for Republicans. Republicans will get prosecuted for any slight violation of the law. Even if they didn't commit a violation of the law, they'll be persecuted and they'll be accused of violating the law and maybe even prosecuted for it, even if they didn't commit a crime. Democrats can commit as many crimes as they want, get away scot-free. Look at Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden's got away with tons of stuff. The rioters get away with tons of stuff. Why? Because they're Democrats. All right, I'm done being pissed off about this story and being pissed off at my wife. We'll make up at the end of the show. All right, darling, could you do me a favor?
Yes.
Despite being totally wrong, could you read the next headline, please?
Biden says he can't talk to reporters or he will be in trouble.
Yeah, I asked Valeria if she'd seen this before the show, and she was like. She'd seen it, which I was actually surprised by, because I didn't realize that you paid attention to the news as much as I did. But I guess, what were you doing today? You had to go do some errands.
Oh, I had too many stuff to do today.
So apparently she was sitting around watching the news, and she caught it. But this is really fascinating, because we've been talking about for a while now, both, like, you know, on our show as well as other conservative show, people have talked about this. Toxic Masculinity. Weekdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.